Why is there a righteous person who has good and another righteous person who has evil? This is because the second righteous person was wicked previously and is now being punished. Is one then punished for his childhood deeds? Did not Rabbi Simon say that in the tribunal on high, no punishment is meted out until one is 20 years or older? He said, I am not speaking of present life. I am speaking about what has already been previously.
Dear unknown friend, this is a quote from the Kabbalistic text Sefer HaBahir, dealing with the issue of theodicy, reincarnation, and karma. Today we will examine the understanding of the process of reincarnation as it was taught by various schools of thought in Western philosophy, ranging from the Gnostics to the Corpus Hermeticum, to Edgar Cayce and Isaac Luria. Many of these teachings have an understanding of the roles the celestial spheres, or planets, play in the occult process of incarnation and their role in ascension. Reincarnation memories surface for people in various ways, sometimes spontaneously in a visionary experience or dream. Sometimes those who have had a near-death experience encounter the reality of former incarnations. Some, like myself, who have had the prenatal or pre-birth memory since they were children, also became aware of former incarnations. Please enjoy this experience.
Part 1. The Chaldean Teachings.
In the ancient Chaldean teachings, the spheres are not mere celestial realms, but worlds governed by the planetary gods, realms through which the soul passes on its journey to incarnation and later ascension. These divine orbits are traversed by the soul, descending from its high celestial abode into the terrestrial world, where it assumes its mortal form. Cicero, in the Dream of Scipio, makes clear the origin of the soul, stating that it emanates from the eternal fire of the stars. The same fire which drives the cosmic revolutions of the heavens, each planet swiftly and gracefully traversing its course. The soul begins its journey in the celestial realm, untouched by materiality, yet at a certain point it yearns for physical existence, and so it descends into the world of matter. Through the spheres of the planets, it dons a subtle astral body, a vesture woven from the very elements of these celestial regions. This descent is gradual, like a person donning a series of garments, from lightest linen to the heaviest cloak. Each sphere it passes through adds to this garment, each layer woven with qualities drawn from the nature of that sphere. The soul's astral body is imbued with the virtues of the spheres it traverses. These virtues are not just qualities, but vital forces, instincts and tendencies that the soul carries into earthly life. These astral traits are mirrored in the configuration of the stars at the moment of birth, which reveals the soul's journey through the heavens before its entry into the material world. Macrobius, in his commentary on Cicero's Dream of Scipio, explains this descent when he says, quote, "Souls, once pure and untouched by earthly matters, dwell in the realms of light. But those who, from their heavenly home, gaze downward with longing and feel the call of material life, are gently drawn toward the lower regions. This descent is not abrupt, it occurs in stages. The soul, initially incorporeal, takes on the first layers of material substance, each sphere giving the soul a deeper connection to the physical realm. This process is gradual, with each sphere shaping the soul's body, preparing it for the life it is to live." Unquote. Through this journey, the soul acquires the faculties it will need in earthly life. From Saturn, it receives reason, logic, and contemplative understanding. From Jupiter, it gains the ability to act and exercise power. Mars grants it courage and the fervor for action, while the Sun bestows upon it the faculties of sensation and imagination. Venus stirs within the soul the desires that propel it forward, and Mercury bestows the power of expression, enabling the soul to communicate its inner thoughts and feelings. Finally, from the Moon, the soul acquires the strength to create and generate, for the Moon represents the final stage of celestial descent, the point at which the soul's journey culminates in its embodiment. This teaching, so foundational to Chaldean thought, is the very basis of genethliacal astrology. The moment of a person's birth marks the culmination of their soul's journey through the planetary spheres. The astral chart at birth reveals not only the soul's cosmic composition, but also the nature of the guardian spirit, the daemon, that will accompany the soul through its earthly incarnation. The chart is a blueprint of the life to come, revealing the latent potentialities that the soul carries from the heavens, shaped by the very stars through which it has passed. Thus, in the Chaldean view, the birth chart is more than a map of celestial positions. It is the soul's record, a reflection of its cosmic journey and its destined path on earth.
The process undergone by the incarnating soul is reversed in the process of death, or in its ascension. We might also add, a similar process takes place in alchemical and theurgical practices, which aim at theosis. Death of the body does not have to occur to initiate this process. Now let us explore the Hermetic tradition.
Part 2. The Ascension of the Soul.
In the ancient Hermetic tradition, particularly in the Poimandres, the first treatise of the Corpus Hermeticum, we are given insight into the fate of the soul after death. As it journeys back to its divine origin, the soul must undergo a profound purification. This process involves a gradual shedding of the astral raiments it has acquired during its descent into the material world, reversing the steps of its fall. The first stage of this purification involves the soul parting with the physical body, the material form it inherited in its earthly life. The body is returned to the earth, dissolving into the elements from whence it came, and the visible form disappears. The temperament, influenced by the four elements, earth, air, fire, and water, is returned to the personal daemon or guardian angel, which has guided the soul from birth. The bodily senses too return to their respective planetary sources, marking the end of their earthly functions. The irrational passions, anger, lust, and other primal emotions are cast off and revert to the unreasoning forces of nature, further purifying the soul for its ascension. With the first divestment complete, the soul begins its upward journey through the spheres. At each station, the soul sheds the passions it had assumed while descending through the planets. In the Moon's sphere, it releases the faculty of growth and decay. In Mercury's sphere, it relinquishes malice and cunning. In Venus's sphere, the illusion of desire is discarded. In the Sun's sphere, the passion for command is let go. Mars's sphere strips away audacity and rashness. Jupiter's sphere releases the lust for wealth. And in Saturn's sphere, the soul sheds the falsehoods that ensnare. Thus, the soul passes through the armature of spheres, divesting itself of the passions and desires that once bound it. And thereupon, the Poimandres declares, stripped of the vestments generated by the armature of spheres, the Logos enters the Ogdoadic essence, the eighth heaven, the realm of pure ether, pure light, having naught now save its own power. Corpus Hermeticum 1, 26. The soul, now pure and unencumbered, ascends further still, to the very powers divine who exist beyond the eighth heaven, and in time becomes one with God. For such is the blessed consummation for those possessed of Gnosis, to become God. Corpus Hermeticum 1, 26. However, this ascent is no simple matter. The soul's passage through the spheres is fraught with difficulty. The very same spheres that the soul traverses on its descent pose obstacles on its return, and the soul may risk being caught in one of these spheres, unable to continue its ascent, and thus fall back into the cycle of earthly existence. This potential for failure necessitates preparation. Through fasting, prayer, sacred rites, and the assistance of intermediary powers, whether gods, angels, or other spiritual beings, mankind can ease the soul's divestment, aiding its transformation and ascent back to the divine. 7 are the passages to perfection of matter, wrote Cagliostro in his Catechism for the Apprentice of the Egyptian Lodge. This notion of purification through stages mirrors the alchemical process, where the soul must pass through 7 phases, each represented by one of the 7 planets. Each planet corresponds to an alchemical metal, and through successive workings, the soul sheds the lower forms of these metals, beginning with Mercury and culminating in the pure gold of spiritual enlightenment. In this light, the teachings of alchemists, such as Pernity, take on new meaning. In the ancient teachings of both Gnosticism and Hermeticism, the journey of the spirit after death is not a mere wandering, but a sacred ascent through the concentric spheres that encircle the earth. These spheres, each a distinct realm of existence, correspond to the 7 planets as understood by the ancients. The Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, each radiating its own potent influence, and each governed by an Archon, a ruler of profound authority. It is within the pages of the Poimandres that we find the clearest and most illuminating account of this spiritual journey. Here, the initiate is shown the process of shedding the accretions of the lower self, the base qualities of the soul, which must be cast off as one ascends through each planetary domain. Each sphere is a trial, each archon a challenge, and through this transcendental process, the spirit is purified, liberated from its earthly ties, and drawn ever closer to the divine light. The ascent is no simple task, for the spirit must face the shadows of its own nature, confronting and overcoming the imperfections that bind it to the lower realms of existence. In the Poimandres it says, quote, "Thence the human being rushes up through the cosmic framework, at the first zone, the moon, surrendering the energy of increase and decrease. At the second, Mercury evil machination, a device now inactive. At the third, Venus the illusion of longing now inactive. At the fourth, the Sun, the ruler's arrogance, now freed from excess. At the fifth, Mars' unholy presumption and daring recklessness. At the sixth, Jupiter, the evil impulses that come from wealth now inactive. And at the seventh zone, Saturn, the deceit that lies in ambush. And then, stripped of the effects of the cosmic framework, the human enters the region of the Ogdoad, the spiritual realm. He has his own proper power, and along with the blessed, he hymns the Father." Unquote.
Part 3. Planetary Archons and Reincarnation in Ophite Gnosticism.
In the intricate cosmology of the Ophite Gnostics, the material world is not a creation of a benevolent deity, but a prison governed by hostile cosmic powers known as Archons. These Archons, each presiding over one of the 7 classical planets, form a celestial hierarchy that sustains the illusion of material existence and ensnares the divine spark within the cycle of reincarnation. This vision of the cosmos presents a radical reinterpretation of astrology, fate, and salvation, wherein liberation is achieved not through moral conduct or ritual obedience, but through gnosis, esoteric knowledge of the soul's divine origin and the false nature of its cosmic jailers.
The Archons as cosmic gatekeepers.
The Ophites identified the 7 planetary spheres, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Moon, as domains ruled by 7 Archons, each subordinate to the demiurge Ialdabaoth, the ignorant or malevolent creator of the material cosmos. In Origen's account of Ophite beliefs, Contra Celsum, these Archons are named as follows: Ialdabaoth, Saturn; Eloi, Jupiter; Sabaoth, Mars; Adonai, Sun; Ori, Venus; Astaphi, Mercury; and Iao, Moon. Each of these entities exerts control over the soul through their association with a planetary force, shaping human experience and binding it to the cycles of fate. These planetary rulers were not seen as neutral cosmic intelligences, as in much of Greco-Roman astrology, but as tyrannical forces maintaining the illusion of material life. They governed a deterministic system known as Hymarmene, a form of astrological fate that ensured the soul's entrapment in the material realm through repeated cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. The Archons shaped human behavior by instilling passions and psychic tendencies, aggression through Mars, desire through Venus, limitation through Saturn, thus further entwining the soul with the physical and psychic components of the body.
Reincarnation as enslavement.
Reincarnation in the Ophite framework was not a path of spiritual growth but a punishment a mechanism designed to keep divine sparks imprisoned in the material cosmos. Influenced by astrological and Platonic ideas, the Ophites believed that the soul, after its descent into matter, became forgetful of its divine origin. The Archons exploited this ignorance, manipulating the soul through planetary influences and embedding it deeper into the cycle of samsaric rebirth. This view is articulated in texts such as the Apocryphon of John, where the Archons create the human body from the elements of the cosmos and infuse it with psychic tendencies that bind the soul to suffering and desire. The body itself is thus a product of their deception, and the passions and compulsions it experiences are extensions of the Archons' influence.
Ascent through the spheres.
Central to Ophite soteriology is the concept of ascension. After death, the soul must traverse the planetary spheres to return to its divine source. Each Archon presides over one gate or sphere in this ascent and interrogates or obstructs the soul. In order to bypass these cosmic sentinels, the soul requires gnosis, not only an understanding of the divine truth, but also the secret names, invocations, and symbols that neutralize the Archon's authority. Gnostic texts, such as the Pistis Sophia and books of Jeu, describe this ascent in mystical terms. The soul, equipped with passwords and seals, must confront each Archon and assert its knowledge of their true nature. A typical invocation might be, Yaldabaoth, I know your name and your origin. You are not my creator. These ritualized confrontations allow the soul to pass through the planetary gates, shedding attachments and illusions at each level. The Ophite diagram, as described by the philosopher Celsus and reported by Origen, depicted this structure visually, a series of concentric planetary spheres forming a ladder of ascent, culminating in the realm beyond the hebdomad, the Ogdoad, where the true divine realm resides.
The role of the serpent and the power of gnosis.
A unique feature of Ophite theology is the revaluation of the serpent from the Genesis myth. Far from being a deceiver, the serpent is a liberator, often identified with Sophia or Christ, who bestows gnosis upon humanity. In the myth of Eden, the Archons seek to keep Adam and Eve ignorant, but the serpent intervenes, enabling them to perceive the falsity of the Archon's world. This act of rebellion is not sin, but awakening. Gnosis in this context is both cognitive and salvific. It allows the soul to recognize that the planetary Archons are not divine rulers, but impostors, whose power derives from deception. By seeing through the illusion of material existence and understanding the spiritual mechanisms of entrapment, the soul begins its path of liberation.
Planetary influence as spiritual obstacle.
Each Archon imposes specific psychological and spiritual trials. Mercury, Astophi, may deceive the soul with false wisdom, leading it astray through sophistry or vain philosophy. Mars, Sabaoth, incites violence and division, binding the soul to conflict. Venus, Ori, tempts with beauty and pleasure, deepening attachment to the body. The soul must transcend these planetary influences, which function as internalized obstacles as much as cosmic forces. Interestingly, in some Gnostic texts, such as the Hypostasis of the Archons, the Archon Sabaoth repents and aligns with Sophia, receiving a throne above the rest. This suggests that even within the hierarchy of the planetary rulers, transformation is possible. Yet even in this case, liberation still requires passing beyond Sabaoth's sphere to reach the pleromatic realm.
Conclusion: cosmic prison and divine ascent.
The Ophite vision of the cosmos is one of conflict between the false world of the Archons and the hidden truth of the divine source. The planets, traditionally seen as guides of destiny, become agents of imprisonment. Their influence perpetuates the soul's forgetfulness, ensuring its reincarnation and suffering. Yet this same structure becomes the ladder of ascent once the soul acquires gnosis. Liberation in Ophite Gnosticism is not granted from without, but won from within. through remembrance, insight, and the courage to confront the cosmic powers that rule the material world. The planetary Archons, though mighty, are overcome by knowledge, and the soul, once awakened, ascends beyond fate, beyond the stars, and into the realm of light. In this cosmic journey, the initiate must possess the words and symbols, sacred tokens, to pass through the dominion of each Archon. To the mighty Yaldabaoth, one must speak thus, quote, "And thou, Yaldabaoth, first and seventh born to have power with boldness, being ruling word of a pure mind, a perfect work for son and father, I bear a symbol marked with a picture of life, and having opened to the world the gate which thou didst close for thine eternity, I pass by thy power free again. May grace be with me, Father, let it be with me." Unquote.
Part 4. The Sleeping Prophet.
Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, provides a similar but slightly different understanding of the relationship the celestial spheres have to both incarnation and the afterlife. In trance, he spoke of the planetary sojourn that each soul takes between lives, each planet aiding, in this case, the development of qualities the individual entity was aspiring towards. Here are several quotes from Cayce's readings.
In that relation in Jupiter makes for the bigness, the noblenesses, as are seen in the entity's experience. In those in Jupiter, of those of the broadness of vision, nature has made of the entity a leader. In Jupiter we find the high ennobling influences in the experience of the entity, in materiality making for associations ever with those in high places, in power, in authority, that deal with problems in the affairs of great numbers of individuals or peoples or the masses. In Venus we find the love of home, of companions, of friends and close relations. As we find in the Venus influences, one that makes friendships, one that has a following in whatever endeavor the entity may make in the experience. In Venus we find the love, patience, kindness, gentleness, as well as the appreciation of beauty, the appreciation of the try. For Mercury means mental, as does Venus love, understanding, beauty and the like, as does Jupiter strength, stamen, broadness of vision, temperamental, and these all are from those experiences of the entity in its sojourn, through these environs. From Mercury also there are those abilities for the judgment and discernment of the entity, as it were, in the present. Saturn's influences have made for rather those test periods, and those experiences where the mental attitude necessary had to be expressed or manifested in order for the entity to remain steady. Saturn has made for a great many changes that have been eminent, though not often made in the entity's experience. The desire to do this and the desire to do that, and the attempt to make this association and that association in all its various activities, arise from those innate urges from the sojourn of the entity in same. In Venus and Mars, we find the artistic temperament, and hence those activities as would have to do with pattern making or designing of anything made of metal or wood. In the astrological aspects, we find these have been as the ruling forces, Mars, as related to material things. Hence there have been in the experience some very disturbing forces in the activities of those associated with the entity in their relationships to madness, anger, satisfying of personal appetites, aggrandizement of interests, and these have been problems for the entity. In the influences in Mercury, with those in Uranus, makes for those conditions that are easily besetting in the entity's experience, of individuals and groups, having that influence as to what will people say, what will individuals think. In this also we find those influences that bring about changes in the entity's individual surroundings as related to groups. The entity influences groups rather than individuals. In Uranus and Saturn, we find the extremes in temperament, as well as the extremes in the changes which have been and are a part of the entity's experience. Neptune and Uranus, both coming within the entity's experience through the sojourns there, those things that pertain to the mysterious, the mystic forces or occult sciences, are ever of interest. Neptune making for those of the mystic, especially influencing this entity in the respect that those forces as come from that, as may be termed odors, incenses or such, will influence the entity in an unusual way and manner. Edgar Cayce's view on planetary influences may be summarized as follows. He reminds us of the influence of the planets as to our consciousness, but again tells us that our free will is the decider, the choice maker of our lives. He says, quote, "So all of those realms, as in Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, have their realms of consciousness also. As to how great the influence is depends upon the individual, for none surpass the will of the individual entity, the birthright of each soul. For the soul is that child of the universal consciousness ye call God, and is made aware of same by the application of laws pertaining to same in the own self. Thus the knowledge, the understanding, the interpretation of life lies within thine own self, as ye apply same in thy activity." Unquote.
Incidentally, there is a great deal of research into the phenomena of children recalling past lives by Jim B. Tucker at the University of Virginia. From Wikipedia, it says, quote, "Tucker reports that in about 70% of the cases of children claiming to remember past lives, the deceased died from an unnatural cause, suggesting that traumatic death may be linked to the hypothesized survival of self. He further indicates that the time between death and apparent rebirth is, on average, 16 months, and that unusual birthmarks might match fatal wounds suffered by the deceased. Tucker has developed the Strength of Case scale, which evaluates what he sees as 4 aspects of potential cases of reincarnation. Number 1 is whether it involves birthmarks or birth defects that correspond to the supposed previous life. Number 2, the strength of the statements about the previous life. Number 3, the relevant behaviors as they relate to the previous life. And number 4, an evaluation of the possibility of a connection between the child reporting a previous life and the supposed previous life. Critics have argued there is no material explanation for the survival of self, but Tucker suggests that quantum mechanics may offer a mechanism by which memories and emotions could carry over from one life to another." Unquote.
Part 5. The Teachings of Isaac Luria.
Another interesting view on reincarnation was taught by the legendary Isaac Luria, a 16th century Jewish mystic. One of the key elements of his Kabbalistic doctrine is the concept of reincarnation, known in Hebrew as Gilgul. Luria's ideas on reincarnation were groundbreaking and have had a lasting impact on Jewish mysticism. According to Lurianic Kabbalah, the soul is an eternal divine spark that originates from God. Each soul has a specific purpose, which is connected to its ultimate rectification and return to the divine source. Reincarnation serves as a mechanism through which souls achieve this rectification. A great deal of emphasis in the Lurianic scheme is placed upon fulfilling all 613 commandments and repairing imperfections or blemishes to the Sephiroth caused by the soul's previous actions and attitudes in other lives. Luria's Kabbalistic system starts with a detailed account of creation. God, in an act of self-contraction, tzimtzum, made space for the world to emerge. This led to a fall or a scattering of divine light, represented by Shevirat HaKelim, or the breaking of the vessels, in which fragments of divine light became trapped within the material world. The soul's task is to retrieve and elevate these sparks of holiness. In the aftermath of the cosmic shattering, souls are reincarnated in various forms and life circumstances to complete the rectification process. Gilgul involves the soul taking on a physical body again to purify itself, correct its spiritual imperfections, and release the sparks of holiness trapped in the material world. Tikkun, or rectification, is a central concept. A soul's purpose is to rectify past mistakes or failures from previous lives. If a soul did not fulfill its mission in one lifetime, it would be reincarnated to complete its task in the next. According to Luria, souls may be reincarnated multiple times, sometimes even into animals or plants, depending on the level of spiritual purification required. The teachings shared by his student Haim Vital demonstrate quite specific outcomes in terms of what form a future incarnation may take due to the failure of keeping a certain commandment. Luria's doctrine also includes the idea that souls can be fragmented. If a soul has not achieved the necessary rectification, it might be reincarnated in separate parts across different bodies. This fragmentation means that multiple individuals might share the sparks of the same soul, working together in a collective effort to bring about the soul's complete rectification. The idea of reincarnation in Lurianic Kabbalah is not just a matter of punishment or reward, but part of a larger cosmic process aimed at restoring the world to its original divine state. The ultimate goal is for all sparks of divine light to be reabsorbed into their source, with souls returning to a state of closeness to God. Following the commandments, mitzvot, and engaging in righteous deeds are essential for the soul's rectification. Performing mitzvot can accelerate the purification process, whereas sins delay the soul's return to its divine origin. The performance of mitzvot and study of Torah help the soul elevate and purify the scattered divine sparks. The tzaddik, a righteous person, plays an essential role in Lurianic Kabbalah, often acting as a spiritual leader who can help others with their own rectification. Tzaddikim, plural, may even assist souls trapped in other bodies or help them achieve their spiritual rectification. Luria believed that great, righteous souls, including those of the Tzaddikim, are often reincarnated to fulfill important roles in spiritual history. This is seen as a form of divine providence, where the soul returns to guide and help others on their spiritual journey. Luria referred to this as a pregnancy incarnation, where the righteous soul may still have some element of tikkun they need to perform, and will do so through attaching themselves to another soul. The ultimate goal of reincarnation is the tikkun olam, the repair of the world, leading to the final redemption, Geula, when all souls will have been fully rectified and the divine light will be completely restored. At that point, the world will be in a state of perfection and reincarnation will cease. Isaac Luria's doctrine of reincarnation reflects a complex spiritual system in which souls undergo multiple lifetimes to achieve perfection. The idea of Gilgul is not simply about personal reincarnation, but also the cosmic rectification of the world, returning it to its original divine state. Through this doctrine, Luria provides a framework for understanding the purpose of life, suffering, and spiritual growth within a mystical, Kabbalistic worldview.
Dear unknown friend, the preceding is just a small sample of the many teachings on reincarnation in the West. We hope to one day make a more complete episode on this vast subject.
If you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to our channel, press the like button, and leave a comment. These simple things truly help our channel reach those who may need it most. If you are curious about our esoteric school, visit our website, templeofthelivingfire.com.
Until next time. Thank you and namaste, the philosophers of the living fire.